My name's Dan Trolaro, and I'm going to be closing out the day with a workshop, Beyond the Track, Navigating the New Era of Teen Sports Betting in Kentucky. So I'm born and raised in New Jersey, 50 years old. I turned 50 on January 24th this year. Got engaged a week later, so it's been a good start to the year. And in New Jersey, we have all forms of legalized betting. I mean, online casino, sports betting, racetrack casino, you name it, we have it. But it's 21 plus for sports betting in New Jersey. So when I was sitting in the morning session, it dawned on me that I'm in a state right now where it's 18 plus, teenagers. And that really really enhances the value of this presentation to say that we really do need education in the schools. We need education talking about gambling and elements of gambling so that our young emerging adults can make good decisions. So we're going to be talking about teen literacy, gambling literacy, and those types of topics today. Before I give you my background, I want to understand who you are. So I want to understand from the people in the room. Tell me your name, what agency you work with, just a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
My name is Cassie Puckett. Right now I'm working in private practice with gambling and substance abuse clients.
Great. Counseling, gambling, and substance abuse clients. And I'm just going to repeat that just for the people online so they hear. So thank you for being here.
My name is Cynthia Turner, and I'm the Prevention Director at Four Rivers Behavioral Health. We're in Far Western Kentucky, about 10 miles from the Illinois border.
Oh.
So that's one of our concerns, too. And then I'm currently overseeing a problem gambling grant that we have.
Awesome. So Western Kentucky, 10 miles from Illinois, prevention, education, awareness. We actually just signed with the state of Illinois. They've approved our collegiate education program for funding. So for the rest of this year into 2027, they're funding any college that we visit in Illinois. So anytime I'm down there close to the border, you're more than welcome to come and, whatever we can do to collaborate. So awesome. Good to have you.
I'm Shannon Sandberg. I'm with Methodist Home of Kentucky, and I do some work in elementary schools and have clients in the office too. I'm a licensed clinician.
Licensed clinician, elementary school. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here today.
Brian, I work at Rooted Recovery, primarily substance use. Operate insurance and utilization review. I work with Dr. Clark.
Excellent. Excellent. Insurance review, we talked earlier. For those of you that were on here earlier, we noticed that there is a diagnostic code for gambling. We still see it primarily coming through as a secondary. Usually there's another type of disorder that comes through when we're making a claim, whether it's mood or generalized anxiety or some other type of condition. So good to have you here. Thank you so much. How about you?
I'm Pam Beach. I work at Adonta Community Mental Health Center. I'm a licensed mental health and drug and alcohol counselor. I'm also Children and Family Services director, so this is my help.
Children and Family Services, licensed mental health, drug, alcohol, substance, the whole spectrum. Do you see, since gambling was legalized here in Kentucky, sports betting a few years ago, have you seen an uptick or any change in?
We are in rural, like South Central Kentucky, so we're not really connected to a lot of the college towns. So.
We haven't really been asking until recently either. So.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And how about for you?
Nathan Saucedo. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, alcohol and drug therapist, and I'm the assistant CEO at Adonta, and been doing it for about 30 years, and pretty much all those things. I'm also running for state office. So.
Congratulations. I wish you luck for that too.
We'll see.
We'll see how it works out. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for being here. And
Renee Moore. I'm with Hoskins Behavioral Health. We have 2 clinics in eastern Kentucky. We're a rural medicine and behavioral health clinic. And I am a program administrator, clinician, and I have a big practice in seeing former athletes, current athletes, in transitioning.
yeah, transitioning. And in our first session today, that transitioning is a really critical element. Sometimes those athletes have rooted their identity based on the fact that they were athletes. That's what they are first and foremost. And when they're no longer an athlete or no longer a dancer, it's like, who am I? What is my identity? And I know that's something I struggle with, and I'll share with you my story as we move through the session today. It's good that you're here, and so thank you for taking the time. Gambling's all around us. So how many of you have kids? Anyone have kids? How old?
I'm 19
19 and 13? 7 and 6? 19?
I have adult kids, but I have grandkids.
Grandkids.
Preteens.
Do they talk about gambling? They talk about spending money on video games? They talk about Roblox? Do they talk about any of these topics? Yeah? Not so much? Okay. Do they play video games or no?
More outside.
Good. Outside's great. How about for you?
They're a little bit of the Roblox, I think, but no video games. They're outside a lot too.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I have 3 kids. So I have twins that are 20. My daughter dances at University of Pittsburgh. She was never much of a gamer whatsoever. I have a younger daughter who's 15. She's a dancer. Not much of a gamer at all. She liked her Roblox, but then she just kind of like, whatever. She never spent a lot of money on it. Just wasn't her thing. I have a son who's also 20, so I have twins, boy-girl twins. Athlete, baseball player, into video gaming, like similar personality traits that I had. I'm 16 years in recovery, so I started my journey of recovery on February 11th of 2010 from gambling, and that's kind of why I do the work that I do now. And so my son, I can see certain personality traits, and he was a gamer. And growing up, he had his Kindle, and he loved playing this pool game on his Kindle. He would shoot pool. Every day he'd get free coins, and they'd give you daily coins for free. And you could use the coins to play as many games as you wanted. He started risking all the coins on the one game. And so these little like patterns that you start to notice as a parent. And there was one afternoon where he had missed a shot that he said, oh, I should have hit this, you know. And he took his Kindle and he threw it across the room. Uh-oh. Now you risk all the coins, you lose a game, you throw the device across the room. Some of the lashing out that we see, right? Inability to control themselves. And I said, hey, I think this game is changing your behavior. Let's put it away for a while. This is not a healthy game for you. So he didn't understand it quite at the time. 2 years passes, and now he's like 14. Like, this is probably when he was 12 or 11. I don't remember the exact age. He says to me one day, he goes, Dad, I want to play that pool game again. I'm curious if I'm just different and able to handle it now. Okay, knock yourself out. I'm curious too. So it was a little bit of like an experiment. So he plays the pool game, and he goes in his room, and I'm just downstairs cooking dinner or whatever. And he comes downstairs, and I was like, well, how did you do? He said, I played for like 15 minutes, and I realized I started getting upset at the game again. He goes, that game's just not good for me, so I just deleted it. Good. And that's the type of awareness, thank you, that's the type of awareness that we need to have. We need to engage and talk to our young people today, adolescents, teens, to say, what is your relationship with this game? Like, life's about relationships. It's about relationships we have with each other. It's about relationships we have with caffeine, with food, with gambling, with alcohol. Is it a healthy relationship or is it unhealthy? I can't sit here and say, don't do that, finger wagging. That's not who I am. It's not my right to say don't do that. And if I tell you not to do something, it becomes extremely attractive to do the thing I said not to do. And like when you go to a restaurant and they put down this hot plate, this black cast iron plate, it's sizzling. Fajitas are on there, peppers and onions and steak and just deliciousness right in front of you. I'm getting hungry now. And all of a sudden the server puts it down and says, don't touch the plate, it's hot. I touch that damn plate every time. I am wired to touch the plate. I'm a plate toucher. That's what I am. Because I want to know what my definition of hot is compared to yours. And why is that? There's ego in there for sure. Oh, I can touch the plate. It doesn't bother me at all. Look at me. Maybe I'm just a little better than you. Is that what goes through my brain? I don't know. But I'm competitive. And when you tell me I can't do something, damn well I'm going to try to do it. I raced triathlon for 18 years after my baseball career ended. Sprint, Olympic, half iron, Ironman. Every time someone would say, oh, that race is a little bit too long, you probably won't be able to complete it, watch. So that's the thing, is like I'm wired that way, so I 100% say, don't do this, it's bad for you. Instead say, okay, well, understand, how does it work? So gaming, gambling, how does the game work? Are you going in with knowledge of how this thing operates and how it works so that you can make informed decisions? That's what I'm about. And that's what we're trying to do in the schools. We want to understand that first, we're in Kentucky where horse racing has a deep-rooted heritage. When I was here for the 2020 conference, I was here right before COVID in 2020. Was anyone at that conference in 2020? Were you? It was like Lexington or Louisville? I can't remember. It was Louisville? Yeah. And so I got to that conference. People are hacking up a lung in that conference. People are coughing. I'm going through the airport. People are sneezing. They got masks on. And I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, why is everyone wearing a mask? What's happening? A few days later, I had COVID. I had COVID before we even got it in the U.S. in March. And I had it from the Kentucky conference, I think. And so at the time, they were talking about sports betting on the horizon. And the people talking at that conference said, we'll never have sports betting in this state. We're a horse racing state. We don't bet on sports. And I said, but what's horse racing? Horse racing is a sport. Yeah, but that's different. It's our heritage. It's who we are. This other sports betting will never happen. Look where we are today, 2026. We never say never. So there's a deep-rooted passion for gambling within the state of Kentucky, and we're seeing it just in other states as well. But the just say no philosophy doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's understand your relationship with it and understand what it looks like. Horse racing, cultural identity, okay? So we know it's been around us forever, and now we have sports betting as well. You have historical racing terminals. Horse racing is even changing how people bet. There's now live in-play wagering on horse racing events. In certain jurisdictions, you could bet the start of a horse race. And at the halfway point, if your horse is in the lead, you can close out that bet. You would take a lower payout. So if you're betting a horse at 10-1, you may only get odds of maybe 3-1 payout if you choose to close that out. But the risk is if you let the race continue, what if the horse loses? You get nothing. So it almost becomes the time value of money. You ever see the show Deal or No Deal? I used to love that show. The premise of the show was, do you want to take the guaranteed money now, or do you want to press your luck a little bit more and try to get a little bit more money? That's the way sports betting works today. In almost every sports contest, when you bet on sports, you have the opportunity to close out your bet in play in real time. And what you're doing is you're sacrificing that future value. So that makes gambling and sports betting an interactive experience. It's immersive. It means you constantly have to pay attention to it. So that's what we're seeing, not just in Kentucky, but all around the country. Historical horse racing, this really expanded digital wagering. It takes the old results and it makes it into kind of a randomized outcome where people can wager. And you don't know what horse racing results it was from. It's all randomized, but that's how we start to see more and more gambling spreading throughout the state. Mobile sports betting. I live in New Jersey. Not only do we have mobile sports betting, we have online casinos in our pocket 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For me, gambling blocking software is a critical aspect of my recovery. So Gamban, Gamblock, those are sites that you can load onto your digital device, onto your laptop, that blocks access to these sites. One of the things that we see oftentimes with online gambling, it's easy return to use. So you've had a bad day at work, you're frustrated. Did Louisville win in the first round today, or are they playing later on? I don't even know if they won. NCAA tournament's going on right now. And so all of a sudden you're a Louisville fan and they lose and you're frustrated. Let me just go on here and gamble for a while. I just had an argument with my spouse. Let me gamble for a while. Blocking software stops that impulsivity. And that is critical because that stops it at a point when you can return to use. So we've seen gambling expand here since 2023. And with gambling expansion comes a lot of risk. Not just the risk of addiction, but it's also the risk of threats to your athletes in the state here. I talked about at the last session that there was Louisville student athletes and coach that were harassed by a Texas gambler. This just hit the newswire a few weeks ago. And so you had a guy in Texas who bet on a Louisville football game. Louisville played Cal in November this year. They lost. This guy had bet on player performance and the outcome of the game. He lost $65,000 on the game. And so he felt inclined to threaten the coach, the assistant coach, and the quarterback. And he said things like, you owe me $65,000 because you suck. Well, no one's going to pay you $65,000 back for your bet, right? And then he says, I'm going to make your life a living hell. I'm going to make your life hell for you, for your wife. I'm going to kill your wife. I'm going to kill your girlfriend. I'm going to haunt you the rest of your life. This guy was threatening and severe. Louisville took pictures of the screen. They have screenshots of this. They got it over to law enforcement on campus. Law enforcement said, you know what? This is a federal issue. So because of the nature of the crime, it became an FBI issue. FBI Texas got involved. They found the person. Our company is a company that kind of works in this space. So IC360, who I work with, I do the education for the company with athletes all around the country. But we do integrity monitoring. We monitor social media channels. We monitor sports betting. We monitor the bets that come in on these games, and if we see something suspicious, we flag it. Now, what is a suspicious bet? There were 2 pitchers from the Cleveland Guardians that got busted last year in Major League Baseball. They were throwing pitches intentionally out of the strike zone so that their friends could make money betting on that particular outcome. So you can bet the next pitch will be a ball. That's how granular sports betting is. They had agreed that they would throw a ball on the first pitch of the second inning. So everyone was betting on that outcome. Well, our company sees these bets coming in, and we're like, there's a lot of money being wagered on this particular outcome. This is suspicious. And so we flagged it and we reported it. So we work to help keep the ecosystem safe in the world of gambling expansion. That's the work that we do. I get the privilege of traveling the country working with athletes, pro athletes, college athletes, Olympic athletes, to help keep them safe. That's the work. Specific to high school, we develop high school education program. In New Jersey, we're piloting it right now. We have 30 high schools that have registered for our digital platform to talk about some of the things I'm going to show you today so that educators and teachers are equipped to talk about gambling. The one thing I hear is from teachers, we don't know what to talk about. What are the topics we should be bringing up to our students? So we're going to talk about gambling literacy. That's important. Financial literacy, probability and odds and randomness. These are all important topics that high school people need to understand. But where does it start? It starts with those shiny little loot boxes right there. So if you have someone who plays games and plays video games, chances are they've probably spent money on them. And they're investing money. They're trying to get a rare digital item, and it feels really good. So here's one of the questions. If you have a game, if you have, let's say in this vault, there's a rare item, and you have a 1 in 100 chance of getting that rare item. 1 in 100. So you take $100, and you say, I'm going to spend $100 to try to get that rare item. The first 99 times, you did not get it. It's 1 in 100 chance, and you failed the first 99 times. Are you guaranteed to get that item on the next one or no?
Nope.
Why not?
Because it's not how it works.
It's not how it works. And it's not how it works because it's random.
Randomness, yeah.
And so
Continuously random.
what we found in our kind of pilot study is that high school kids said, well, absolutely I'm going to get it. Because it's 1 in 100. So I didn't get it the first 99 times. I'm going to get it on the 100th try. But the way random number generators work is that every time you spend that dollar, it's always 1 in 100. It has no memory of the previous 99 outcomes. It has no memory of the previous outcome. They're all mutually exclusive. And high school kids do not understand that. They just see 1 in 100, I'll spend $100, I'm guaranteed to get it. No. How many of you have ever played roulette? How many colors are on a roulette table? How many? What's the third color? Green. The 0 and 00.
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I've only played about one.
But that's good. That's good that you said that because when I was at high schools, kids would say, roulette's the best game to play. It's 50-50. It's either red or black. And I said, no. The reason the 2 greens are kind of hidden at the end, they don't want people to spot them. So spot on, 100% right. But that's what shifts it to the odds of the house. Because if it was red or black, it would be 18 out of 36. That's 50-50, truly. That's like a coin flip. But when you have the 2 zeros, it shifts it from 18 out of 36 to 18 out of 38, which is now 9 out of 19, which is a 45% edge to you and like a 54.5% to them. So high school kids just don't see the game. And so some of what we talk about when we talk about high school literacy is educating people on how the game works and what the mechanics are to let them know the house always wins. That's how they build fancy casinos. That's how there's so much money that goes in. That's why they can give all these promotions. But it starts early with video gaming. It starts earlier than that. Anyone ever been to a Chuck E. Cheese? Dave and Buster's? I mean, there's mechanics of gambling all around us. When I was on a flight, mom handed her phone to a 4-year-old. Kid opened up that smartphone, started playing a social game. It was a Bible-based slot machine game. And the kid would get 3 matching Noah arcs and win like virtual coins. So it was a Bible-based slot machine. Based on the books of the Bible, you'd have to like get these outcomes. I've never seen anything like that before. But it kept the kid entertained, and she's 4 years old playing that on a plane. And I just looked and I was just shaking my head in disbelief. That's like giving a 4-year-old a lottery ticket or a shot of bourbon or something. You know, it's like all of a sudden if we're not having education about this, it could become problematic. We also have to realize that when we talk to our teens, we hear them say so often, they tend to put a lot of emphasis on luck. It's my lucky day. I'm going to wear my lucky shirt. Look, I do a lot of trainings in New Mexico with some of the casinos and the racinos in New Mexico. And when I walk through the casino gaming floor, it's amazing to me when someone's sitting there and they've decorated the slot machine. They have trinkets and trolls. Go ahead. Oh, it's a racetrack and casino merged into one. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, good question. And so you've got the racing element, and then you've got the casino side. So people can do both. And in New Mexico, you can't drink when you play the slot machines. But you can make bets on the horses and drink and get drunk there. You just can't bring the alcohol into the slot machine. So they don't have any live dealers there. So they're decorating the casino, the slot machine, and they're covering up the things, and they're doing these weird activities that they think gives them luck or gives them skill on how they press the button or something like that. We see it all the time. When you talk about, though, with high school kids, they love that near miss. The brain reward, do you know your brain processes a near miss just as a win? It produces dopamine. There's a critical element about, and it's a video that I've shown in the past, where they take a person who was struggling with his gambling and they put him inside an MRI machine. And they look to see how his brain is activated while he's playing roulette. And what they find is that it's not just the winning that counts, it's the participation and the anticipation. And those are the two things that can keep someone really hooked. And those are the chemicals that get produced in the brain. This is where we have to educate our teens and our young and emerging adults, is that we use lights, we use sounds, we use animations so that the loss feels like a win. Like, oh, I was so close, but it looks so good. Let me do it again. And that's how we start falling into this trap. That's what we have to be careful of. We also have to, we talked about before, algorithm awareness. So the algorithms are always like the house. The house math is always going to be in favor of the house. That means games are designed for the house to always have a better advantage than the player. 100% of the time, the house will have a better advantage. It might be slight, but it's always going to be in favor because over long periods of time, the house always wins, okay? So then when you start getting into like feelings, that starts to account for 45% of a player's behavior. A player will be impacted by their feelings. Any blackjack players in here? Anyone ever play blackjack? There's a strategy to blackjack. There's certain ways you play the game. And there's rules of thumb. If a dealer has a 6 or less and you have a 3, you hold, you don't hit. There's certain hands you just don't hit on. I've played at blackjack tables back when I was gambling, and people would say, I have a feeling the next card's going to be low. And I'm like, you are screwing up the entire hand. And it used to bother me. This is why I never gambled in person with people, because I didn't like how stupid people were. In my opinion, when I was gambling, I had a very bad attitude and a bad temper. They were ruining my chance to win, because they were going based on feeling. And they would minimize actual probability. See, students, they overestimate their knowledge, they overestimate feelings and emotions, and they don't pay attention to the math. Gambling is about probability, odds, and randomness. And if high school kids don't understand that, they're going to get themselves in trouble. And that's part of the problem we see, is that there's this lack of knowledge around that. If you're playing a game and your odds of winning are 1 in 20. I'm sorry, your odds of winning are 1 in 5. You have a 1 in 5 chance of winning, and you play 20 hands. So 1 in 5 chance of winning, you've played 20 hands. How many have you won? 5. 1 in 5. I mean, over long periods of time, you'll win 5. How many have you lost? 15. So when I ask high school kids, I'm like, how much have you, we lose 15 out of every 20 hands. That's pretty bad. Why am I playing this game? I'm like, good question. Why are you playing the game? And it gets into a deeper conversation. See, we have to help them rethink. Sometimes we get stuck in patterns of thought. We have to shake people a little bit, help reframe the problem or reframe the question so they can understand it a little bit differently. One of the areas we see a problem with, though, is mobile access. Kentucky, 18 plus for sports betting. Man, that's a big issue. I'm telling you. I don't think it really dawned on me that it was 18 plus. I know I mentioned that before. When I was 18, I was not equipped to be betting on sports. Even though I had a gambling problem already at that age. See, I grew up in a house where gambling was normalized. I grew up in a house where my mom left when I was 2 years old. My dad raised me and my brother. And my dad gambled and drank regularly. And I bonded with my dad at the racetrack. Horse racing was my first love. In New Jersey, I'd go up to the Meadowlands or some of the other racetracks, how to handicap horses, how to read the racing program. I fell in love with the process. It wasn't necessarily the gambling at first. For me, it was the process. It was getting the form, getting my paper and pencil out, and starting to write notes. And it was a really intricate process of handicapping. And that's what I fell in love with, the detail-oriented part of it. And my dad encouraged it. He taught me how to gamble. And, you know, I was an athlete. I was a baseball player in high school. I was scouted by the pros. I was scouted by 3 D1s. I was a lefty pitcher. And, you know, I had an injury early on. I had a rotator cuff problem. It damaged my career. It hurt my opportunity to go forward in sport. But I still graduated with a major in finance, a minor in economics, and I got my first job working at New York City at Goldman Sachs investment banking. And I got married June of 2001, and I apologize from the crowd that was here in the first one. And, you know, 3 months later, life changed because September 11th happened. And I was downtown that day, and I watched the second plane hit the towers, and I watched people jumping out of windows and bodies hit the pavement. And I lost 14 friends, and I lost 2 more to suicide. And so for me, in that moment of time at the age of 25, where I didn't know how to feel, because I was never talking about feelings with my dad, I thought I was okay. And so I just assumed I'm good. But my body, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Bessel van der Kolk wrote it. The physiological response to trauma, and how trauma lives in the body and it has no voice. And I was experiencing that without realizing it at the time. Looking backwards, I can now see it. But at the time, I wasn't fine. And so I had to leave Goldman in 2003 to join Prudential. And at that time, I'm starting to gamble more and more. Because I went back to what was normalized at an early age for me. That was my safe place. I chose to use gambling as my escape. That was my outlet. It wasn't alcohol. It wasn't drugs. I never did that. Gambling was my safe haven. And so I turned to that. I became a financial planner. I started developing a gambling problem, and I was in charge of your money. Which is not a good, that's like the person who struggles with alcohol working in the liquor store. Not a good idea, right? Probably a good career choice. And so I started making a lot of bad decisions, and I embezzled over $2.1 million from my clients and my company to fuel my gambling. And it was all online gambling. I would go to Vegas. I wouldn't gamble in Vegas like I would online. And it was illegal. It wasn't legal. It wasn't regulated. It was offshore illegal gambling. And I would wager all the time. I had kids, didn't matter. I would find ways to do it. You know, anyone who struggles with addiction, you find time to do that drug of choice. That becomes my priority. Yeah, I'm a family man. I'm married. I have kids, but I love the gambling. That was my relation. I was having an affair on my marriage with gambling. That was my primary relationship. And so it ultimately destroyed me. Ended up getting caught. Ended up getting sentenced to 6 years state prison. So February 11th of 2010 is when I got found out by the IRS, by the FBI, by the Attorney General's office, and I admitted to everything I had done. August 19th, 2011, I got sentenced to 6 years state prison in New Jersey. I served 4 of the 6 years in the system at different levels of care, and while I was away, I realized that I suck at life, and I need to do something different. And while that's not positive self-talk, it's just honestly how I felt at the time. And so I got my master's in psychology, and I wanted to understand this, because I had to get myself unlocked from the mental prison I'd been living in since September 11th. And I started doing the work and started emotional work and emotional awareness. And I found my niche was to start talking about gambling, because we don't talk about it in schools. People walk around saying, oh, it's not a real addiction, it's a money problem. I sat in an inpatient facility right after I had gotten caught in Philadelphia. It was called the Keystone Clinic. And when I'm sitting in that room, in a group therapy room, with other folks struggling with substance, there was not one other gambler in there. It's fentanyl, heroin, alcohol, heroin. Dan, gambling. They laughed at me. Literally laughed at me. They said, well, what else? I'm like, that's it. They're like, you didn't do any drugs? Nope. Then why the hell are you here? Just stop gambling. You're good. You can go now. And that was my experience with inpatient at the time. And I got discharged by the clinical director the next day. He said, I don't know how to help you. He goes, we've never seen anyone with just a gambling problem before. So good luck. Go to GA maybe. That was it. And so that's what I started doing. I started going to Gamblers Anonymous, where I was around other people who were like me. That peer-to-peer, like I'm not alone. I'm not so unique. You know, there's nothing wrong with me. I needed to be with other people. And that was my journey, how it kind of started. And so when I came out of prison and I got my freedom back, I started working at the New Jersey Council on compulsive gambling. and started making waves into the high schools. I hit 142 high schools in 2018. I didn't get in the door very easily because high school principals and clinical SAC, student assistance counselors, say, gambling, kids are too young, it doesn't happen here. Okay, but do they drink? Oh yeah. Isn't that too young too? But that happens, but gambling doesn't? Oh, well, it's not a big deal here. So I started changing my approach. I said, do your kids come into school tired sometimes? Yeah. Do they play video games? Yeah, that's all they talk about. Great, I'd love to talk to your kids about video games. Healthy choices, decision making, and risk taking. And that's how I started getting into the high schools. Because within those video games are those loot boxes, prize packs, decision making, risk taking, and that's what started changing the landscape in the conversation. There was a problem, there was a solution to be had, we just had to find the right one. And so it is important as we go through talking about gambling to realize that we're talking about developing brains. Late 20s, mid to late 20s, prefrontal cortex, decision making, risk taking. This is what they're struggling with. They're struggling with transition. They're struggling with a lot at this age. And they're also struggling with their technology use. So for any of you working with folks, if you're dealing with someone in recovery from gambling, talk to them about their tech use too. Because it's important to understand the type of gambling a person does. If you're going to the racetrack and buying paper tickets and putting $2 at the teller window, that looks a hell of a lot different than being on this thing every 20 seconds making a bet. It just hits the brain differently. And so it's important that we understand the type of wagering. Gambling's no longer an event. It's a constant digital companion. It is in our face. It is across the scrolling ticker on the bottom of the TV screen. It's at the water cooler. It's in the classroom. It's on the field. It's all around us. So it's with us 24/7. There's social groups, there's chats, there's Discord, there's all types of just Reddit threads, you name it, can't get away from it. It's all around us. So how do we teach gambling in high school? It's not just the just say no approach. This is about critical thinking. This is about understanding the elements that go into gambling. Math is the medicine. To me, it comes down to probability, odds, randomness, and making sure that they understand this is not about luck or feeling or emotion. While those are elements of it, yes, it comes down to statistics and math. Visual literacy, okay? Understanding risk recognition. What are the psychological triggers? Kids love to chase losses. Athletes love to chase losses. Because there's something inside of us that says, I don't want to lose. I don't want to be a loser. I don't want to feel like a loser. I want my money back. How many of you have ever gambled and thought, I'm going to gamble a little bit longer, I want my money back? I know I have. Yeah. I want my money back. And so I'll go to the ATM. I'll gamble a little longer. I'll just take out a little bit more money. I need to have my money back to feel good. For me, a good gambling day was when I broke even. To me, that was a good day. When I didn't lose, that felt good to me. I didn't have to win. I just had to not lose. But most of my days ended with $0 in my gambling account because I would just keep chasing losses constantly. Siri just thought I asked for it. No. Siri just gave me the definition of probability, odds, and randomness. See, it's listening. Integrating math literacy in the classrooms. Odds, the VIG, calculation, risk, probability, randomness. We're going to continue to hone in on this. This is what needs to be discussed and taught in the high schools. In Kentucky, for those of you that have kids, did anyone ever come in and talk to the kids in high school or middle school about gambling? Maybe someone from GA share a story to your knowledge? No? In New Jersey, we don't have it. In New Jersey, it would be maybe someone like I would come into the school, talk about gambling addiction. When I work with NCAA athletes around the country, what I traditionally see are the athletes from foreign countries, Europe and Australia primarily, they get gambling education every year, growing up until they got to their secondary school. And so they would always have it. Australia especially. Australia has some of the highest rates of problematic gambling in the world. Some of the highest rates. It's normalized at an early age. The marketing is all around them. It's encouraged. It's just a family bonding activity. So it's typically talked about.
Well, what's the opposite now is that on ESPN and like Fox Sports, before a big game, there's sports betting shows that's educating
Oh, yeah.
kids. You see the ticker running.
Yep.
And that's where they're getting their education.
Yeah, they get it on TikTok, they get it on TV, they get it on YouTube. I mean, I have my daughter before the Super Bowl this year, I was down at Texas Tech. And she's on the dance team at Pitt, so all the girls are watching the Super Bowl. They made wings, they had a whole big thing at the house, all that good stuff. And she's like, Dad, I put $5 on the Seahawks this year. I hope you're not mad. I'm like, thank you for letting me know, because obviously you're in Pittsburgh, I'm in Texas. I would have no other way. So I'm thankful for the open conversation I have with the kids. And I was like, I'm not mad. I said, good for you. I hope the Seahawks win. I'm a Giants fan. I can't stand the Patriots. I hope the Patriots lose anyway. And I said, well, how did you decide the Patriots or the Seahawks? She goes, I don't know. I just like the color of their uniforms. And all of our friends, we kind of flipped a coin. And then we're like, okay, let's just do the Seahawks. So she's like, one of the girls has a sports book. I was like, oh, really? She goes, yeah, it's because her boyfriend is a student athlete. He's not allowed to bet on sports. She opened the sports book account in her name, and he bets through her account. So now I tell my daughter, I wish you didn't tell me that. Because now that's the area that I work in. I don't need to know that. Because that could be, now he's doing something illegal. And so the issue becomes, as the conversation was going, she's like, yeah, well, a lot of girls here started gambling with their parents because the parents would open the account, and it was a way just to kind of like get together. She goes, you never did that for us. And she goes, I understand why. Like, I understand. Like, we never did that together. But she goes, I had no idea how many people start gambling with their parents at an early age. And it's like, if you're a parent, it's not cool to open up a gambling account and let your kid gamble through it. That's like letting your kid just now start drinking or have a cigarette or do anything else. Like, we don't see the immediate effects of gambling all the time. We see it with alcohol. We see it with drug use. We understand the immediacy of substance use disorder. Gambling, we don't see it. We understand that substance use disorder has withdrawal symptoms when it gets really bad. And if someone needs treatment and care, we have to be very careful when they stop using. Gambling doesn't have that. Gambling doesn't have withdrawal. We understand we can give a urine screen and a urine test for someone with drugs and alcohol. Gambling, I'm not going to pee dice. There's nothing that comes out. It would hurt like hell if I did. So there's no positive urine screen. So while they're similar from a DSM perspective, non-substance related disorder on par with substance related disorder in the DSM-5, there's still so many differences, which is why we have to have conversation, which is why we have to say, hey, listen, I know your friends are doing this, but let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it, all right? So integrating mathematics, even integrating in social studies. In Kentucky, like, what's our history? We are deep, rich tradition in horse racing, centered on gambling. What's our history? In New Jersey, we've had Atlantic City casinos for decades. We've had horse racing for decades. We've had lottery for decades. So where we have states, like, we have to work this into curriculum. What we've done in New Jersey is we developed a digital platform that teachers can then go into and have the topics to talk about, how to talk about the topics. There's 3 to 5 minute digital education videos that someone can watch, take some knowledge check, answer, question and answers, and they get a badge, a certificate or a badge. And then teachers are using that for extra credit. So if the kid goes home and wants to log in and watch a 4-minute video on emotional awareness and gambling, and they show the badge to the teacher, they get an extra credit point. Great. That's how we want to encourage and make the learning fun, but at least then they're learning something along the way. We also have to empower critical thinking, because we have to make sure that people understand, like, what you think you might know looks like a good bet. Like, if you're betting the Kentucky Wildcats, you have to realize that the apps and the algorithms are always 10 steps ahead of you. So many times I'll hear a kid say, I have such a good feeling about the game, and I did my research, and this game, they're getting 5 points, but they should be the favorite. This is a lock. This is a home run. No, it's already been factored in. Whatever you're thinking, someone smarter and a computer that's AI-powered has already thought of it, oftentimes in the gambling field. And kids have a hard time with that because that ego is still really big when you're talking 17, 18, 16, 18, 19 years old. So we have to understand that they realize that literacy is going to shield them against making bad decisions. And sometimes we give basic advice. That's what parents do. That's what I used to do. Hey, be careful. Here's some basic advice. Gambling can get bad. Then you start highlighting risk, protective factors, risk factors, protective factors. We start elevating the messaging. Prevention strategies, how to keep the community safe. That's what we heard about, community involvement, community awareness. How do we create a safer community? And then it's full literacy. It's like, we need curriculum. Virginia has K through 12, I believe now, mandated in the schools. The pilot that we now have in New Jersey, we're hoping to get mandated in the schools by 2028. This is a goal. It's a step in the right direction. We've got to make sure our emerging youth are safe and protected in all areas. What are the red flags? Some of the things that we've seen in the high schools and we've seen around the country: loan sharking. High school kids lending money to another person, kid can't pay, all of a sudden there's an issue. We see it in school cafeterias. I was at a high school in North Jersey where I was talking to seniors during it was a talk about your job day, so I was invited in to talk about sports betting, integrity, monitoring, technology, and all the kids wore the sweatshirts from the colleges that they'd be going to, or t-shirts or something. It was kind of a nice thing to do if they were going to school. And two of the girls were like, oh, there's gambling all throughout our high school. I'm like, well, how do you know? She goes, because in the lunchroom, there's 2 kids in this room right now who take bets from people. So these 2 girls were calling out their peers. And I look around the room, and I can see 2 guys laughing their head off, kind of like elbowing each other. One kid was going to Ohio State, and the other kid was going to Michigan. So 2 kids taking sports bets. And I talked to the kids afterwards. I said, guys, this is not how you want to get into college. I said, you got to be really careful. If you're gambling now, by the time you get to college, you're going to run into a big problem. And so just having some of those conversations, and they talked about, like, what we see all the time is that it's easy to bet with students because sometimes kids will lend you money, you don't have to pay it back right away. That's the old school bookmaking. That's the stuff that I was into. And I still have family friends, fathers, who have 25-year-old kids that owe $60,000 to some person they've never met virtually. Because loan sharking and bookmaking is now digital. You get a new website link to your phone every day. You can make the bets. If you lose, we just add it to your bill. And then one day, you get a text message that says, hey, you owe us $22,000. You got to send us $10,000 by 5 p.m. tonight. And the kid says, I don't have that money. And the guy says, if you don't have the money, we will break your leg. We will hurt your mom. We will kill your dog. This is what we see all around because it's not the person face-to-face anymore. It's faceless. Bookmaking today, and some of the high school kids get jammed up in this, it's very scary. And then they don't know what to do. I've sat across a number of individuals in my time, 16 years in recovery, where I've negotiated payback terms on behalf of someone who was struggling with organized crime. It's not my favorite thing to do. I don't like walking into a house where I know I've got someone who struggled with their gambling, and now I've got someone from an organized crime family in the Northeast who's sitting across from me, and the first thing he does, reaches for his back and he puts his gun on the table. And he says, if you have one, I would recommend you put your gun on the table too. I said, I don't carry a gun. I'm just here to try to help the family, that's all. Haven't had a problem yet. I don't like being in that line of work. I've kind of drifted away from that as my recovery's gone on. But early on, I had a lot of those conversations. They're not fun and they're not pleasant to have. We also see high school kids that start to get stuck with gambling. They are preoccupied with stats and numbers. They are watching the games. They're sitting in class and they're just like watching the outcome. I shared in the last session, there was a kid at University of Louisville who actually came up to me after a session and said, listen, I think I just want to talk to you. I just lost $3,700, whatever it was, $3,500 in 37 minutes in class. Day trading. He's so preoccupied with the day trading. He's failing his class. He's losing money. He shows up late for practice. He goes back to his car, got a speeding ticket in the parking lot, and almost hit a pedestrian. 5 things. And this kid was asking, does he have a problem? And I said, well, I think you want to have a conversation with someone who can help you. I said, I think you have a lot of risky behaviors that you're engaging in right now that need to be flushed out. And that's where we have to be careful. We have to make sure that we're letting people know what the risks are. We have to understand that teenagers are also emotionally volatile. We know that. When my son is throwing a Kindle across the room, that's not normal. I love these viral videos of someone smashing a TV set. It's like impulse. Or are they doing it for clicks and views? That's the other thing we have to kind of consider as well. Okay? When you hear a lot of wager conversation, what's the line today? This game's a lock. I'm going to make a lot of money. These are things we're listening for. How many of you have heard this talk amongst high school teens? Yeah, you have, right? Let me ask you a question. So in the work that you both do in the back there, are we primarily substance use, drug and alcohol? 60-40. Have you noticed a shift in any of the concern of people in recovery from drug and alcohol sliding over to sports betting now that it's legal in the state?
Honestly, I'm embarrassed to say that we haven't, until we actually got, I think, the same grant that she's referring to. We have included the survey in the assessment and in the screening process and in the biopsychosocial, and then we've done some advertisements, but we haven't collected that information until just recently. So, I mean, we have seen it, but it's not something that's extremely pronounced.
Got it.
Because we didn't ask.
Yeah, good point. And I appreciate that. Like, if we don't ask, we don't know. The other thing I realize from surveys and instruments that we ask questions, sometimes we'll ask questions about gambling, but we don't quantify what gambling constitutes. And I realized that was leading to some lower numbers. So for any survey I ask, I say, for the purpose of this next question, gambling is risking anything of value in hopes of winning value where there's risk or uncertainty. That includes sports betting, daily fantasy sports, bingo. You go through the list of things that are gambling-like activities. Because for people in recovery from substance, even the gambling-like activities can become problematic. Bitcoin, day trading, they're not gambling. Prediction contracts, they're not gambling, but it's gambling-like. So then we started adding all of those activities, the numbers went way up. And it's not because we're trying to say, okay, gambling's bad. It's just saying these could potentially be risky for you as a person in recovery from substance because you can get dopamine from these things, all of these things. Like there was a season of my life, even with eBay. I was racing triathlon for 18 years, and I wanted to get a new triathlon bike. And so eBay is a great spot to get that. I found a bike that I liked in North Carolina, but my sponsor said, you can't bid on that. He said, you got to be careful. He goes, if you bid on it, you have to see, are you preoccupied? Are you checking that bid every minute, 2 minutes? Do you start to become preoccupied? I had a very strict sponsor. And so I didn't take his advice. Like he was giving me advice. He said, you can't do that. So in my brain, I'm like, well, damn it, I'm going to try it. You know, I'll be okay. I'll be the exception. Nope, Dan was not the exception. So I put the bid in, and then all of a sudden, I find myself trying to work, and I'm like, oh, let me just check that bid. Okay. And I was so distracted for the next 2 hours, I could not focus. So I canceled my bid. I didn't upbid it. And instead, I did the buy it now feature. So I paid a bit more money, but I bought it outright because I was not equipped to handle that distraction. And that's what's fascinating about it. So even things like eBay and those types of things can become like retail therapy for people. Like it can become problematic. And for me, it started to.
Dan, something that's culturally relevant, you know, to my area where in eastern Kentucky is that recently we had where the FBI came in and took out what were referred to as the gray machines out of every gas station.
Oh, okay.
And
Skill-based?
yeah.
Yeah.
So what is changing is rooster fighting is coming back.
Oh, is it really? We saw that in New Jersey and some of the Dominican neighborhoods. Yeah.
Huge, and that's something where that teens are going with their dads.
Yeah.
It's a very close
Rooster fighting.
community.
Yep.
It's something that they can control. They know where it's at. I mean, it is organized betting.
Yep.
And teen fight clubs.
Oh, okay. And teen fight clubs.
Teen fight clubs are really big, and it's they're like showing them on TikTok, they're betting on them. It's really prevalent in eastern Kentucky.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's what's so important to realize is we talk about the emerging trends and growth of technology, but sometimes it's boots on the ground. It's cockfighting. It's teen fight clubs. Underground poker games, massive. And there were two freshman Texas student athletes. So they had graduated high school, and they were going to a college in Texas. I'm not going to say which one it was. And these kids got involved with underground poker games. And these guys who were running the poker game knew that they were student athletes at a school who had a good chance to start for their team. And so they invited him to start playing poker. And the kids said, okay, yeah, we want to play poker. And the guy said, don't bring any money. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. So the kid's like, oh, this is nice. This guy's going to let us play for free. He's going to give us $5,000. Well, that happened the first time, and the kids lost. They got invited back the next weekend. They lost another $5,000. Mind you, these games were rigged. These kids were never going to win, okay? So now the third time they show up, the guy says, listen, you're down about $10,000, $12,000. You got to give us a little back so that we know you're good for it. And the kid said, well, I don't have the money. And the guy said, that's all right. We got 2 ways to solve this. First way, I need you to run drugs into Mexico for me. And the kid said, I'm not going to run drugs into Mexico. And the guy said, well, then I need you to fake an injury the next game. And when you fake an injury, that guy knew he was going to make a hell of a lot of money. So the kid ended up having to fake an injury. And what they found out later on through FBI investigation, through the DEA, is that this was part of a drug cartel that was organized in Texas that was going after college student athletes who they knew that they could compromise. Because oftentimes, if you come from a poor socioeconomic background and you're vulnerable, there are bad people out there that are taking advantage of that. And that's one of the risks I see is that a month and a half ago, FBI announced that 39 college basketball players from 17 colleges were all busted for gambling, faking injuries, giving inside information. One of the young men went to Good Morning America and shared his story. He was from the University of New Orleans. And what he shared was, he's a college kid, 19 years old or so, had just had a baby girl. So now he's a college kid, has a newborn baby girl, and he grew up in a very poor parish in Louisiana. He did not have a lot. He did not want that little baby girl of his to start off the same way that he did. So he took $5,000 to fake an injury. He said, I know it was the wrong decision, but I just wanted to look out for my little girl. I get it. Like, I understand why he did what he did. But at the end of the day, he can't do that. And number two, people knew he was vulnerable. And they took advantage of his vulnerability. And they also put him in that situation, which was really, really crappy. So we see that that happens a lot. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Couple other things. We see sometimes kids love betting West Coast. Like, I'm on New Jersey, so West Coast sports start really late. Obviously, you're just an hour time difference from us. So when we start to see kids betting, especially in high school or college, they're up late watching meaningless games. Like, why are you watching Hawaii play football? What's the purpose? Like, why does anyone watch the Cleveland Browns play football unless you got money on it? Like, there's no reason to watch certain sports unless you're betting on it. So when we start seeing a decline in grades, classroom participation, they're on their phones all the time. In New Jersey, they're going to actually be banning phones in the classroom starting next year. Does Kentucky have that rule? Is it in place now?
In ours, where my grandson goes to school, it is.
I don't know if it was a state or a county or, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So New Jersey's going to be taking that next year, or no phones in the classrooms. You know, so that'll be very interesting. Other academic and social indicators of poor performance, again, missing assignments, social withdrawal and isolation, and also just carrying a lot of baggage. There was a story I told before that really moved me. Like I said before, you can't see gambling. You can't see people affected by gambling. It's also the friends and family members that we don't talk about enough. When we talk about addiction, we talk about the people struggling themselves, but we don't talk about the impact of the friends and family. When I was up at Merrimack College, there was a group that I was talking to. It was the dance team and the spirit squad, cheer and dance. And I'm asking about what are the behaviors that you start to see when someone has a gambling problem. You know, borrowing money, you know, bad attitude, mood swings, blah, blah, blah. One girl shares, she says they become delusional. I said, well, what do you mean by delusional? She said they promise you trips to Disney. They promise to buy you new sneakers for the first day of school. They promise you things, and they don't deliver. She goes, I hate my mom because she has a gambling problem. And that made me sad to hear that. The next girl says that she can't watch sports because her dad gets violent when he loses money and he abuses her mom. And she's scared of her father. And like, to hear those two stories just hit me right in the heart. And the teammates, their friends and peers did not know that these girls were carrying that around with them. They had no clue. And so immediately they were like, you could just see, I could see their faces because I get all the eyes. I could see the eyes. And these girls were just floored. So they got the support they needed because the coach had no idea, no athletics department had no idea that these girls were going through that. And that made me sad. And that's why we have to have the conversations across many facets. What does it look like? How do you help yourself? You know, I have family members who have children that are struggling with gambling, and they want so bad for their kid to get well, to get help, to get support. But if an individual doesn't want help or support, you can only do so much for them. You can point them to the resources, you can know the resources, but at the end of the day, they have to want it for themselves. And until that time, it's almost a helpless feeling at times.
I was just reading here, it says that intimate partner violence incidents go up 10.5 times when one of the other partners is a problem gambler.
Thank you for looking at 10.5 time of intimate partner violence. And that's scary, and that's sad. And I've heard that time and time again. When I used to work at 800 Gambler, the phone calls we'd get the day after the Super Bowl from a partner to say, yeah, you know what, last night didn't go so well. My husband drank a lot. One time a woman calls me, the husband had thrown her through a wall because he was so pissed. She was just sitting next to him watching the game. Every year they watch the Super Bowl together. This year was different. He bet on the game, he was doing cocaine, he was drinking excessively, and he was losing his bet. And he kept saying, you're sitting too close to me, you're giving me bad luck. And she goes, what, you're acting crazy. What's wrong? Like, why are you acting like this? She couldn't wrap her brain around what he was saying. And he says, I told you, get away from me. And she was petite. He took her and threw her into the wall, right through the drywall, right in front of their kids. And she goes, do you think it was my fault? She thought it was her fault because that she made him have that outburst. So she called 800 Gambler. So we got her into some treatment and therapy to talk with a gambling counselor for friends and family, to understand the 3 C's, right? Gam-Anon teaches 3 C's. You can't cure it, you can't control it, and you can't cure, control. There's a third C. What the hell is the third C? Might be change. Can't cure it, can't control it. It'll come to me. Can't change it, might be something along those lines. But from a family member's perspective, no, it's not your fault. That's not your fault at all. And for someone to think that's very scary as well. So understanding that youth gamble, recognizing prevalence, understanding and having conversation at an early age is the best strategy for prevention. Having open conversation, being encouraging, compassion over comparison, like leaning in and letting that person know, hey, I know you and your friends gamble. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here to listen. Like, let me help you understand. What is your understanding of sports betting? What is your understanding of parlays? Have conversations. There's resources out there for parents also to have those conversations. So we have to build a supportive community in the school. We need teachers to be aware. We need to have resources provided to teachers. We need to have staff training consistently, especially if we're working with young and emerging adults, people in recovery from substance use or other mental health disorders. Gambling is just all around us. It just has to be folded into the framework. And we have to ask the questions the right way. Because consistently, when I hear the phrase, I don't gamble, I just bet on sports, that means that if you ask a survey question, do you gamble? They're going to say, well, no. If it's sports betting, that's not considered gambling. So we have to make sure that we're always clearly defining what it is that we're talking about. Engage the families, engage the parents, monitor bank accounts. If teenagers have debit cards, credit cards, bank accounts, those should have some restrictions or some joint parental controls on them. Ordering copies of credit reports once a year is a great strategy. And we need that more and more now. Even when our kids are 18 plus, get copies of those credit reports. Understand the probability of the big win versus the trade-off, which is the more likelihood, the real-world loss. The big win doesn't happen very often, but it's what's advertised on TikTok, on social media. I can't stand Drake. I'll tell you that right now. Because Drake has got stake where he gambles $1 million online and people think he's using his own money for that, and he's not. He's gambling with company money as an entertainment thing, but the way he showcases it, it makes people want to also gamble at that level. He celebrates the wins to such a level, he gets other people engaged. The promotion of big-time money wagering is a big problem. That's something. Dave Portnoy also is another one. He celebrates those big bets, 100%. And we have to be very careful. And that's why we have to engage, like understand consumption. What is the technology we're consuming? How is it being filtered? And are we having conversations around it? We want to always have healthy relationships. That's the one last thing I'll say, is that for me, life's about relationships, like I said before. We have to help people understand, what does a healthy relationship look like? What does unhealthy look like? And then that's where all the additional trainings come into play here. If we need resources, you got the Kentucky Council on Problem Gambling, the National Gambling Helpline, and also the Gam-Anon Gamblers Anonymous support groups. So, something I did not ask before, but I'm going to ask now. In this session, we move fairly quickly. It's already 4:15. I want someone, each of you, because it's an intimate group, give me something you took away. Give me a short 10 words or less, something you learned new, something you heard differently, something you didn't know before, something you found interesting, so that we can all learn from each other. And when you're done with that, I'm going to look up the 3 C's of Gam-Anon because,
Cause, control, cure.
oh, cause. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. That's the big, you didn't cause it. It goes back to the point, it wasn't her fault. Right. Those are the 3 C's of Gam-Anon. Thank you very much. So starting with you, something you learned to do. I took away cause, so that's what I learned. I forgot what cause. That's it.
You talking about how like when you would go, you do the numbers and the process. And
Yes.
the routine. And that, I guess I never really thought about like, you scratch off a ticket, that's it. But I didn't realize there was, because there's so many routines around drugs and substance use, like no matter what it is, there's always a routine.
Yes.
I didn't realize that all types of gambling, I mean, troll dolls, yeah. But
Sports betting,
you
the
had
horse
the
racing.
routine, and that's
Yep.
part of the dopamine.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that one out.
Big part of the dopamine.
Yeah, my brother in recovery from alcohol, sitting at that same bar on a Friday night, holding the same right hand on the same bottle of non-alcoholic beer, but the entire routine was the same. And what we talked about in the first session was, in recovery, we can't push the stuff away from us. We get tired of pushing. We get tired of keeping things out of our life. We get tired. We have to create a new life where it no longer fits in. So it's nutrition, it's sleep, it's changing a lot of things that were in our life previously. Your recovery is not looking strong if you're doing the same mechanics and behaviors, and the only thing different is what's in the glass. So you're right, the routines stay the same. Thank you so much. What's the takeaway from this one?
The fact that there is prevention programs that are available for teens if you could get into the door.
Yeah.
It's getting in the door.
We're making progress on that because 5-6 years ago it wasn't even a topic, and now all of a sudden we're starting to see more curriculum development, more stuff for teens, understanding how games work, emotional regulation, decision making. It's important and it's out there. It's a slow train that moves, and that's the frustrating part for me. It's moving too slow.
What surprises me is that for years, Kentucky, because we were a tobacco state, we had all this money for that they had to do for prevention to not smoke or dip, and they were in the schools.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the pushback on the early prevention for gambling when we're one of the most historic
Yeah.
sports betting for the Derby and horse racing.
You're right. You're right. And what's the pushback? It gets there, and then it starts getting into legislative. So if we have someone maybe running for office in here, allocating more dollars towards prevention, education, and support, that would be my ask if I was a Kentucky resident. What did you have?
The connection that you talked about with the friends dying during 9/11.
Yeah.
And after that, and how that made you so much more vulnerable to something that you had comfort with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a safe thing. It was fun. So I went back to the things that gave me happiness and safety. And those are the things I felt comfortable doing to escape life. I had friends that did drugs and drank excessively because that's how they coped. Instead, for me, it was gambling. Yeah. I wanted to feel good. Yeah. Thank you for that.
I had a couple things come up this time. The one thing was just with prevention and how we encourage parents and guardians to start having conversations early and often to build that relationship, so they have those peer refusal skills when they're faced with substances, and just the emphasis on adding gambling into that conversation and actually defining what that is and making sure they know that can include sports betting and what it means on their phones and all of that. And then the other thing that I thought about towards the beginning of the presentation, you talked about historical horse racing, and that's kind of a newer term that I'm learning about because we just had a gaming event center open up the end of February near one of our lakes, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Do
Do a little bit more research on that, just how they use historical races and they build them into casino-style games. And it's just another way of getting entertainment and spending money on a risky outcome. Yeah, thank you for that.
good about, that don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, you know, and they get all that information, but not gambling, you know.
Yeah.
And being able to identify what gambling actually is. It's typical, it's, you know, bingo on a Thursday night or whatever it looks like, so.
Even
Trying that.
even asking the teens, like if you were to like even ask teenagers, like if you start showing them logos like without names, like what logo is this? And you show them like a DraftKings logo, the amount that kids recognize, like they recognize brand. Like brand recognition's big. And so you can start picking out, that's FanDuel, that's MGM, that's DraftKings, that's whatever it is. And it's like all of a sudden they have a lot of knowledge of gambling companies because of advertising. So they're getting it trickled into their brain whether they realize it or not. And that's the first step. Because remember, marketing is designed to motivate a consumer to do something. And over time, that's what they're going to see. So they're going to attach that with, oh yeah, that's DraftKings. And I've normalized spending money on video games with an uncertain outcome. So, well, let me just go to this next step, right? You normalize it early, and now you have brand recognition. So thank you for that. What was your takeaway?
My kids are still pretty young, so I just didn't realize it was so prevalent in high school and stuff. The loan sharks in high school and that.
Yeah.
And then also the psychology of the near miss.
That dopamine feels good. Almost win, the near miss. Yeah, the near win.
I think just like most of them, just the awareness of the risky behaviors that we're seeing that we just didn't put together that is connected to gambling.
Yeah.
Like you said, we see drugs and alcohol, other things with our kids, but we never push it. I'm glad that we are starting to look for that and add that in to get the treatment and prevention.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I didn't know what a racino was.
I love that. You know what? You're right, and I appreciate that. So thank you for that. Racetrack Casino. Any takeaway?
Absolutely. I appreciated you changing their perception of the problem so that we could identify behaviors outside of the problem.
Awesome.
Most of them mentioned.
Awesome. I appreciate that because oftentimes people say, oh, I have a gambling problem and I have an alcohol problem. Sometimes that's your solution to a deeper problem. And let's always remember that. That, you know, and I referenced this before, you know, we talk about songs like Midland. People say I got a drinking problem. I got no problem drinking at all. They call it a problem. I call it a solution, right? So these are the things, like for me, gambling was the solution to my problem of dealing with September 11th. I didn't think I had a problem at all gambling. I could gamble with no problem all day long with the best of them. It was a problem, right? So I appreciate it. Thank you all. I wish you all a good weekend. Anyone online that had a question? No, perfect. Listen, I thank you all. Good to be here. Enjoy your weekend. I will not be here tomorrow. Yes.